You're listening to Podketeers.
Welcome to episode 249 of Podketeers. This week, I had the chance to finally meet one of my favorite artists. Jason Ratner is a Florida-based artist that does amazing work, and he was out here for the Food and Wine Festival at California Adventure, and I tell you the story of what happened while trying to meet him. Jason is an awesome guy, and if you're not familiar with his art, head to the blog post at podketeers.com/249. You'll see one of his posts on that page. You can also follow him on Instagram. He's at jratner81, JAYRATNER81. If you follow him, make sure that you say hello and that Podketeers says hi too. We also follow up with Gavin and Melissa on their submission for the D23 Haunted Mansion Design Contest. Melissa tells us about some limited time magic on Indiana Jones. Plus, we wrap up our talks on Main Street with a good old Armchair Imagineering session. March Mayhem will also be concluding on the day that we release this episode, so unfortunately, we won't know the winner because, as much as it pains me to say, I don't have a TARDIS, but that's okay because next week we'll give you all the updates on the winner and the winner of the contest and all that good stuff, so stay tuned for that. If you find yourself talking to your speakers while listening, remember that your speakers are only good listeners, but you can join the conversation by leaving a comment on the blog post for the episode at podketeers.com/249 or by connecting with us on Facebook, Instagram, or on Twitter. Just search for Podketeers. If you like to do the YouTube thing, you can also check out our channel. Just search Podketeers. We would love it if you took a moment to subscribe and maybe even hit that little bell icon for notifications whenever new videos are posted. Before we kick off the episode, as always, I want to send a huge shout out to the FGP Squad because it is their support via Patreon that help make these episodes of Podketeers possible. For more information on how you can become part of the FGP Squad with a monthly or even one-time contribution, you can head over to podketeers.com/FGP. If you can't join the FGP Squad but you still want to help us out, you can do it the next time that you shop on Amazon. Just start by going to podketeers.com/Amazon before your next purchase. On that page, you'll find a large Amazon button that'll take you to Amazon's homepage using our special referral link, and anything you buy may earn us a small commission as a thank you from Amazon for mentioning them on this podcast. If you're already using this process, we just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to you as well. And that's it. I mean, I could talk longer, but I'm already talking on the podcast. So instead, I'm just gonna get the podcast started. So here we go. This is episode 249 of Podketeers. I feel like I really need to do the intro with the guitar riff from Space Mountain, just the Dick Dale, just. That's horrible.
Everyone pumped.
It's like I'm on the ride,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's a horrible version of the ride.
That's funny.
But I'm not a guitar player. You know, my brother's the guitar player in the family.
Okay.
I'm one of those by ear piano players that does fairly well for never learning how to tickle the ivory properly.
That's still pretty good. Jeez.
But, I mean, the first time I busted out the Entertainer, I was like, yeah, that's
Nice.
something I know.
That's very good. That's a difficult piece, dude.
Oh, yeah, I got through like the first 4 minutes of it, and that's it.
Hey, that's awesome.
That's funny.
Tried the accordion, and I only did one day.
No
I was
kidding.
done.
Oh.
What
I was, like,
inspired the
six.
accordion?
I don't know. My mom signed me up.
Interesting.
That
Maybe
was
she
it.
saw like a Weird Al video and was like, yup, that's the
Maybe.
instrument.
There it is.
Yeah.
I
No.
love me some Weird Al.
She saw the movie UHF and said, the accordion's for my girl.
That's it.
That's so funny.
That is funny. Interestingly enough, Heyzen, my brother is the guitar player, and he's really good. And I'm the piano player, so we kind of have a similar thing going on there.
Oh, right on. But did you actually learn how to play it and read music and everything?
Yeah, I took lessons for several years and did a couple of recitals
Ooh.
and used to be fairly proficient, but, similar to my Spanish language learning, I didn't use it for 20 years and now am totally rusty.
Got it. Got it. I know what that's
Yeah.
like. Well,
Yeah, but I played a little Rachmaninoff, a little Beethoven, a little Beatles music, of course.
see,
That's
you got to
awesome.
start priming those fingers, man, so that we can like bust out some YouTube videos and be like, "Words are flowing out like endless." We can do this.
Nice. See, you surprised me because I know you're not a big Beatles fan, but when you whip out some actual Beatles melody and lyrics, that's nice.
I
I
try.
like it.
You know, the thing
I'll
about
play
the
you
Beatles,
sing.
the thing about the Beatles is that I personally didn't grow up listening to them, but I appreciate them and I appreciate what they did for music and culture
Yeah.
and what a phenomenon they were. But my dad, huge Beatles fan. Huge.
Oh,
Oh.
cool.
Yeah, when
Very
the
cool.
anthology came out and the
Ah,
box set was available for the first time,
yes.
like I've never seen my dad want something more in his life. He was
It's
like a little kid at a
Aw.
candy store.
I can totally relate to that. Like when that happened in 1996 and 97, like it or 95 and 96, that it solidified my Beatles fandom in such a palpable way. Like I can't tell you how much the Beatles marked my life in so many ways, and like in all honesty, they're probably my number one passion, even ahead of like Disney and all of its things.
Wow.
So yeah, I can totally relate to that. I would love to get the chance to talk to your dad sometime and just, shoot it around about the Beatles.
Even more than the Utah Jazz?
Yeah, that's probably third. So it probably goes the Beatles, all of the Disney things, and then the Utah Jazz. Like, yeah, it's a good call. You know me. Like, those are my three things, right?
That's funny.
Nice.
Hey, I have to ask, man. What's up?
Yeah.
What's up with all those sparkly beads behind you?
We're doing it Mardi Gras style around here. What can I say?
Huh? You going around doing the dancing and stuff, or how'd you collect them beads, dude?
So here's the deal. My favorite art supply store in the universe happens to exist here in Orange County, and it's over in Westminster, and it's called Art Supply Warehouse. And it's a place that I've been going to for years, even though I've only lived in California for the last 9 months. It's kind of like the Disneyland for art supplies is how I
You
would
have my
describe it.
attention.
It's the most pure, beautiful art supply experience I've had in this century. It's amazing.
Wow.
Like it really is. Living in the Midwest, there's not a whole lot of art supplies, so it was incredible to me when I found this place. And so when I would travel out here on my trips from Oklahoma, I would spend the first few hours of every trip because I would fly in the morning and I couldn't check in until about 3 o'clock. I would spend the first few hours of every trip going to Art Supply Warehouse and buying art supplies for myself. And it has just become one of my favorite California places. I absolutely love it. I tell every artist I know about it. And if they haven't been, I recommend highly that they go. And this weekend they were doing their Artie Gras, which was kind of awesome.
That's
And
funny.
they had like doorbuster giveaways and they were giving beads to everybody. So Charlie and I both went. We got a bunch of beads and I upgraded some of my equipment and got some art supplies, and it was just amazing. And they were playing music, like Mardi Gras kind of music. So the whole time we kept feeling like we were kind of in New Orleans Square buying art supplies. It was great, man. It was fantastic.
I've
Yeah.
never heard of this place before.
It's
Same.
the best. I'm telling you guys, like if anybody out there is creative and you buy art supplies, check it out, because not only is it an amazing little store with a great staff that's very knowledgeable, they have prices that beat everything. So when I was in Oklahoma, I would actually wait. I would skip buying art supplies on Amazon Prime because I knew that when I would come out to California in a couple of months, I could get better prices in Art Supply Warehouse and I could just stock up when I
Whoa.
came. Yeah, like it's legit. It's my favorite art supply store of all time, hands down.
Wow. When my brother and I were going to school, we took a whole bunch of character development classes and storyboarding, and we used to have to go to art supply stores all the time to replenish our stuff, like charcoal pencils, those big pads, everything. And we used to go to a mom and pop shop in downtown Glendora called Painted Moon, which doesn't exist anymore. And super awesome staff. They were really helpful. Within a day, they could get stuff that they didn't have for us. And from there, they closed up, and then we ended up going to the art store in Pasadena, and I mean now Dick Blick, But there's also a Blick Art Supply off the 57 in Fullerton near Disneyland, which I've gone to before as well. But this place brand new to me. Like I wanna like go down because it sounds like the motherland for artists.
Right.
Dude, it really is. You guys need to check it out, and it's worth the trip. Like Melissa, it's probably 10 minutes from where you live, maybe.
Which I'm kicking myself that I've never heard of this place.
I'm glad this came up because you need to know about it. As a creative, you definitely need to know about it. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Hashtag field trip.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys want to go, I'm there.
I just want to make sure that I throw this out there that they're not sponsoring this episode of the podcast. This was just one of those conversations that came up. But considering that we do have two legit artists on the podcast in Gavin and Melissa, if you guys would like to sponsor us, we're completely open for that opportunity. So, Heyzen at podketeers.com and hit me up.
Totally.
Hey, so since we're on the subject of art, can I just say, Gavin, you had me drooling this weekend when we photographed that painting that you did for the Haunted Mansion anniversary and the D23 competition.
Well, thank you. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. It was a labor of love, not unlike the painting that I did for the Pirates 50th anniversary 2 years ago. It's been well noted that New Orleans Square is not only my favorite land in Disneyland, but I believe it's this podcast's favorite land in Disneyland.
Pretty much.
We adore it. We talk nonstop about it, whether it be Mansion or Pirates or just the square in general. It's such a beautiful, amazing, Walt-touched place that, we just all revel in. And so to get the chance to create something for the 50th anniversary of the Haunted Mansion was, it was easy inspiration. And, I took inspiration from several of my favorite Disney artists in the creation of it. And, just use that as a launching point to create it. So, yeah, thanks, man. It was fun to create, and I'm really happy with it, and I hope people dig it. I hope it, gets people excited about the mansion and gets them interested in the history, because presenting something where you're like, oh, this celebrates 50 years of something, like that usually spurs people to be like, 50 years? Like, holy cow, that's a lot of time. Like, what's happened in those 50 years? And, it's easy to get inspired by something that's so great. It's an Imagineering feat that is in many ways unrivaled. And, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast. And, there's books and other podcasts and millions of pieces of art dedicated to it. So I hope in some way that this kind of stands out and, is cool in some people's eyes.
Dude, it's beautiful. Like the use of
thanks.
color. Oh my God. Like the teases that you were posting, I was already like, this is awesome. And then you see the bride and it's like, oh my God, that's one of my favorite ones because she's creepy. She's creepy and it's perfect. Yeah. My mouth just dropped when I saw it. I was like, this is so awesome. And I'm really hoping you make it again.
Oh, thanks.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The busts
I
in the
do
back
too.
are great too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Charlie and I debated back and forth along the way because I really use her as a sounding board for a lot of my ideas because as an artist I've got my head in the clouds and I don't have my feet on the ground, but she's more plugged into like what the general people think about things than I am. And so she's always trying to like steer me in different directions to kind of consider the public, so to speak. And we debated back and forth about including lots more characters and different elements from the mansion, but I really kind of wanted to go not necessarily subtle, but kind of I wanted to step back in the mansion's history and almost take it as a kind of a early history of the mansion where things were a little more pristine still, where maybe the bride is almost the only haunt at that point, and the busts you can see in there are all intact, so the one bust isn't cracked and laying on its side, things like that. So I kind of wanted to step back in history, and then also drawing inspiration from so many classic Disney artists, I wanted to kind of step back in time as well and kind of draw from their artistic styles. So that's kind of the concept I went for, and people seem to be responding positively to it. I hope people love it. I really enjoyed creating it, and I'm trying to make prints available for it so that people can enjoy it moving forward. Huge ginormous mega shout out to our buddy Heyzen here who photographed it for me because his expertise paid off big time in me being able to present it to the world in a beautiful way, because paintings are really hard to capture in photographs effectively. And he came over with all kinds of super like science fiction-y flash technology linked to iPads, linked to cameras, and like everything was like timed, and it was amazing. And like he turned our entire apartment into like a photo studio, and it was amazing, and everything turned out beautiful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. As I mentioned on your Instagram account, I pointed a camera at it. You 120% had everything to do with how awesome this piece is. I mean, all the subtleties around it. One of my favorite parts of this, believe it or not, is not the bus, it's not the bride. It's the eerie glow that you had it that appears to be coming from behind the mansion where the swinging wake is possibly happening.
I'm glad
and it's
you
just
noticed
so
that.
subtle that glow is there. It's like my favorite part of the whole thing, dude.
Cool. I'm glad you dig that. I kind of that was almost an accidental thing. I had started to paint one thing in one of those trees behind the mansion, and I kind of added a stroke, and it kind of gave it that glow, and I thought, wait, it'd be really cool if something was like reflecting off of all of these trees back there, and you can't see it, but something's happening back there. So that's cool.
I love it so much.
Very cool. I hope people dig it. I hope people get a chance to see it in person at the expo. We'll see. We'll be entering it this week, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it gets in.
Well, in the meantime, if you hadn't seen it yet, because Instagram's algorithm and all, head over to Gavin's personal Instagram account that is at Gavin Otteson Art, or you can head over to podketeers.com/249 and see the image there. It's a fantastic piece, and once prints become available, if you are a Haunted Mansion fan, this is going to be one of those things that you're going to want in your collection. I guarantee it once you see it.
Oh, yeah.
Mel, what about your piece? I know you were talking about entering and you've been working on something. How's your piece coming along for this?
It's coming along. I want to say the wings are the last piece. I was able to get the head carved.
Nice.
And this whole thing has been a journey because I had this little thought like, is this going to be good enough? Am I going to be able to make it? And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for it because I've heard so many just reinforcement and good words from everyone. Like, you could do it, just try it, da-da-da. And I'm kind of surprised that it's gone this far. Like,
Well, because it's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Like it unquestionably, you have the talent to make it into this competition. We've all seen the competitions, exhibitions over the years. I've been going to the expo since 2011, and some of the things you've created over the last year or two are absolutely up there on par with the things that get into this competition. So,
Thanks.
if you just bring that same level, absolutely you have a chance. The caveat is you never know what the particular judges that they appoint to do the competition are looking for,
That's true.
Sometimes they seem to look for different things than are expected, and you never know. The cool thing about this particular version of the competition is they're doing it in a way they've never done before, in that they want you to create a completed piece and submit images of that piece. And that's the first time they've ever done that. Previous years, they've wanted you to submit sketches and concept art of your finished piece, and they'll judge from that. And to me, that makes it harder to tell what your final piece is going to be. And so, you really had to try super hard on your concept sketch. So like 2 years ago, when I made it in for the Pirates competition, I spent probably 3 weeks just on the drawing that was the sketch for the final painting, right? So like, because you felt like you had to spend that time on it. So it's cool that they kind of cut that part of it out, because now you can just focus on creating your vision and then submitting that. And if they like it, and they bring it in. And if not, you've created something that's awesome that you can sell or display or whatever you want to do with it, and that's kind of how I approach it this year. And it's kind of an awesome new thing that they've done. And I mean, but back to your piece, I'm super excited to see it, because I think it's a completely unique thing. I've never seen anybody attempt that particular I don't know if you'd call it a character or
An
piece
idea,
of the mansion in its overlay state, and it'd be a really cool little piece like that somebody could display. Like I imagine like a haunted mansion collector, like adding that to their collection and adding it to their display, like on their mantle or something, like really, really cool idea.
That was one of the things, was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Because I have a feeling, and I love Hattie, but I have a feeling how many people are gonna submit a Hattie piece.
Exactly.
Oh
Or
man,
the
I was
stretching
gonna submit my
portraits.
photo.
I'm sorry. Oh God, I take it back. You could edit
totally
this out.
should. But that's
it
the
was
thing.
just-
Yeah.
For me, I love to like challenge myself. So I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I've dressed up as this thing, or I could say the snow angel, for Halloween once, and I loved it because it's just a standout piece.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? No one really talks about it, so let's try it. Whatever's.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. So
And that's the challenge, though, like Heyzen kind of brought up, is that, certain vignettes in the mansion and certain characters have been done to death. I know that there are creatives out there who can give a new spin to it and give their style to it, and they can create things that we've seen a million times in a really cool way, and we all still want it, right? But in something like this, like the idea of doing more stretch room portraits or the Hatbox Ghost or the hitchhiking ghosts, like it just seems like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do something that's been done 10 million times already, right?
yeah.
So I super appreciate the direction that you took, because it's really unique. Like I've never seen anybody attempt a sculpt or a painting of that particular piece. So that's kind of awesome, and I hope the judges recognize it for its uniqueness, for sure.
I do too.
Yeah.
We shall
Yeah.
see.
It'll be
Exactly.
so awesome when you guys are both in the D23 competition.
It'd be so cool.
Oh,
love
it
it.
would be unreal. Just
I love it. Well, Melissa had posted a couple of teaser pics on her Instagram account. I remember seeing the wings on there, or I'll call them wings. I don't know exactly what they are. Wink,
Wings.
wink. But I'll post that in the blog post for the episode as well, podketeers.com/249 to check it out. And if you aren't following Gavin and Melissa, you could be following the progress of these amazing pieces that they have put together, because I'm sure that in their Instagram stories and in the Podketeers one, they'll be posting updates as they progress with what's going on with the design challenge. And I mean, if you're not sick of the hitchhiking ghosts, you can head over to podketeers.com/gear and grab your very own Hitchhiking Ghost t-shirt, which is one of the newer designs that we have in the gear section. Melissa wore it to the parks and posted it on her Instagram account. I have that shirt as well. It has become one of my favorite designs that we have in the store right now. And if you use the code HITCHHIKE during checkout, you will also get 10% off your order, not just on the shirt, but everything that you order will get that 10% off. So take advantage, Hitchhike.
Can I add that I did not wear a sweater, but I wasn't too hot as well during the day?
Oh, that's good. Those shirts are super comfy.
They are. And I was like, I was surprised. I didn't need anything. So awesome shirt.
Yeah, months ago we changed providers. We were doing a lot of stuff through TeePublic, and I went through maybe 5 or 6 months worth of research to try to switch to a different provider that was a little more local to us. That way I could take a look at designs and I could interface with the people that were making them for us. And man, I am just so happy with this change. Their products are fantastic. Their shipping times are great. Like, I love them. They're just amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I made the designs. I really liked how they came out. Like, the prints just impeccable, super clear, really crisp. I mean, I can't say enough good things. So go check it out. Take advantage. 10% off. You're going to enjoy it. And it's not just on that product. You can use the code HITCHHIKE on anything. If you want to get the Disney, Disney, Disney repeat shirt, that's how you have to read that. When I made that shirt.
That's my current favorite. I need to get that one.
It seems so simple, but I think that's how my brain works sometimes. It's like, Disney, 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 repeat.
Yes.
Same.
So, anyhow. I got a quick story for you guys before we kind of go on with the rest of the podcast here. Jason Ratner primarily does a lot of stuff in Walt Disney World. He's a well-known artist, does amazing work. He came out to California for the Food and Wine Festival here, and he's been here for 2 weekends. This was his last weekend here. And when he first announced it, I remember posting on Instagram saying, oh my God, I have to go meet this guy. I love his art. I want to go say hello. And I posted, I will be there. I'm going to go meet you. I want to say hi in person. And so I was super excited, right? Last weekend, didn't get a chance to go. Some circumstances came up that prohibited my going to the park for that particular reason. Yesterday, we just had a lot of stuff around the house that we had to get done. And then today, I thought, okay, I'm done with all the stuff I have to get done. Oh, no, it's 3 o'clock. And, I mean, I'm about an hour to an hour and a half away from the park, depending on how bad traffic gets. And so I thought, oh, man, can I get there like in time? Because from 3 to 5, he was going to be in the artist corner right next to Ariel's Undersea Adventure. And I thought, man, can I make it to Disneyland, past security, on the tram, and then somehow walk into DCA and all the way to Ariel before 5 o'clock? And so I was like, challenge accepted. So I quickly got ready. I got my backpack together with my camera because I didn't know what was going to happen, right? And so I took off. I ran into a couple of pockets of traffic. Got there right at 4:30, and I'm thinking, okay, great. I got my parking pass, parked, got through security, and I get on the tram, and I'm thinking, oh no, it's 4:48. So, the tram parks, and then I start walking, get off, start going through the Esplanade. Boom, I trip. Okay?
No.
What?
Walking through the Esplanade, and I trip. And it wasn't one of those things where I fully fell over. It was one of those things like in cartoons where you're like stammering around and it looks like you're kind of mini dancing. And it basically looked like Bambi getting up for the first time. Okay? And so I was able to keep my footing, not fall over and look like a total dork. At least I just looked like a tiny dork. I went through, or right around Grizzly Peak, and I came out through the back, and I was so happy that I did that because I remembered as I was going back after everything was done that Food and Wine Festival was going on, and I realized how packed it was in that other area.
Yeah.
So I made the right choice.
Nice.
So I'm walking over there. I show up at 4:58. Okay, 2 minutes from them wrapping everything up, and I'm out of breath because this was possibly the closest that I'm going to, I think the proper term is run. It's not something I do very often, so it felt more like slogging over. I don't know. But I made it, right? That was the important part. So I'm catching my breath. Nice to meet you. And so the cast members that were there were so funny. They were like, are you here for... I was like, I'm here to meet Jason. They're like, oh, you just made it. I was like, thank you. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. So I caught my breath. He was talking to another couple that was there. They finally left, and I introduced myself. But he's super down to earth, super cool person.
That's cool.
I had a chance to chat a good 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm pretty certain it was because he felt sorry for me because I was like sweating and panting and everything from like running out. No joke. This was literally the only thing I went to the park for, just to meet him. Because I was tired from all the work I did this morning because I had to mow the lawn. I mean, hashtag adulting. And it was like knee height because of all the rain that we had recently. So it desperately needed to get mowed. Oof. And I was kind of embarrassed that it was that high, to be honest with you. So I was super tired from working on that. But I went over. I figured he's only in town for one more day. I'm going to meet him. I'll come back home, and I'll get ready to record after.
Nice.
So it was great meeting him. I had a chance. I posted on Instagram in our stories, a picture of me looking like a total spaz because I was totally nerding out about meeting him. But, yeah, I mean, I hope to have a longer conversation with him soon. I don't know, if he's allowed or what his schedule's like, but I mean, I would love to have him on the podcast one day so he can just kind of tell us about how he got started in art and how his love for Disney came to be because, all of our loves for Disney start at different points in our lives and they start with different experiences. Some of them start with movies, some of them with books, some of them with those old records of the Haunted Mansion and Opie telling us a story. Well, Ron Howard, but those are classic things that we remember because they were either passed down to us or because we experienced them as kids. And it's always interesting to see where people step into the magic, right? Because everybody's experience is different. So if we get the opportunity to chat with him, that would be amazing. If we don't, I completely understand. I don't want to pressure anybody into, being on the podcast. But, yeah, it was super cool meeting him. So quick shout out to Jason. Go over to his Instagram account. Check out the art that he posts. It's absolutely fantastic. I'll put a post in the blog post for the episode, podketeers.com/249 if you want to check that out.
Yeah, he's super talented, and he seems really genuine as a person. I'm totally envious that you got to meet him. I had wanted to today, but circumstances got in the way.
I get that, dude. Hashtag adulting.
Right? But next time he's in California, I will stalk him.
I'm just glad you made it.
I know. That whole Bambi scenario, though. So... hey, Mel, I wanted to ask you because this came up I feel like it came out of nowhere. At Indiana Jones this week, they had a really interesting thing going on. Yes. You were able to tour the queue because the ride is down for refurb right now. Tell us a little bit about what the process was to get your ticket or what you had to do because it was a little confusing, but it only went on for 2 days, and that was the most interesting part of this.
Pretty much, I had no idea what was going to happen, but I kind of had the same situation where It's 2:30. I'm out. I gotta run over to the park.
Nice.
I get to the park and I'm like, oh crud, spring break. I totally forgot.
Oh.
But as I'm going to the to Indy to the queue, there's nobody there because what they're telling everybody is that the ride is down, but they have tours. But it looked like nobody actually knew what was happening, and I'm like, no one's here. I'm gonna take advantage. This is awesome. You get to the entrance and they let you know, and if you wanted to stay, they gave you a decoder card. It was just a regular card. It didn't have anything on the back. And, I got one. I said thank you, and I kept going.
Nice.
And the front part, before going inside, how would I say, to the left, where you see like the first usual spot, like a photo op or whatnot, they had like a sign. I haven't had a chance to decode it yet, but they had like a little message on a piece of fabric so that people would go with the cards
Nice.
to figure out what it said.
Buy Dole
which
Whip.
was right? Or Max Pass for this and that. No,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is cool, something different. And for me to just see that nobody was around, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start taking pictures because it's always crowded. But as I keep going, right in front of the entrance between the snake columns, they had all these props just out there in a fashion where in the beginning of the, I want to say in the reel room where they have the movie reel going on.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And they show the props. It was kind of like that, which is really
they
awesome.
added props to the facade?
Yeah, to the front. Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome.
And
Very
they
cool.
had a couple of things. They had some snakes. They had some hats. And they're like, take whatever you want. And I'm like, snake, put it around me. This, put on me. Yeah. I'm going to take advantage.
I assumed you brought those yourself.
But you know what? I had my indie shirt, but I had a mansion sweater.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, no. I got to roll up my sleeves. I got my indie tattoo. I got to show this off.
Nice.
And so I was able to take a couple of pictures, and I went up the main, I would say where the standby and fast pass meet, go up to inside, and there's a cast member in there right where the portrait of Mara is, and he's talking a little bit about it.
Oh.
And it's really cool because it was information that I had known already, but just to take in the experience of a cast member telling us about it, pretty much telling us that this deity, what he gives and whatnot, and you're not supposed to look into the eyes and try not to do that.
I always do. I'm a rebel.
You're right. Can't help yourself.
That would be a pleasant ride if it wasn't for people like you, Heyzen.
Oh, is it my fault that it gets that rough?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's always one of them.
Yep.
Right. So you keep going, and you're going into the obelisk room. And there's another cast member who's just explaining the obelisk that's there, the four sides.
That's cool.
And the initials that are on the walls. And the initials on the walls are the Imagineers who worked on the attraction.
Really?
I did not know that.
I didn't know that
Really?
either.
That's super cool.
Wow.
I'm going to have to show you where Tony Baxter's initials are.
Yes. Oh, man, that is so cool.
So once you're done there and you just keep on going, and again, it's empty, so I'm taking all these pictures, which are on the Podketeers Instagram, if you want to see them. And you keep going, and the end of that part before the caves, that's where it ends, but they had another photo op, which again, they had more props, really cool stuff. I mean...
Oh, so you didn't get to go into the room with the rotunda?
No.
Oh,
I
man.
know.
That's the one that I would love to just have free reign to photograph. That's,
Yes.
to me, the greatest. Oh, that's, oh, man. That's
But,
so cool, though. It's very cool.
I mean, for a 2-day thing and for the attraction to be closed, it's still pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just
Absolutely. And it tells you how awesome that queue is.
Yeah.
That when the ride is down, it's worthy of doing tours that even only take you halfway down it. Like that's
Oh yeah.
like the theming of the Indiana Jones attraction is still probably the best. It's hard to compete with it. I think Radiator Springs Racers is close as far as all the way from the queue to the end of the attraction.
Yeah.
But Indiana Jones, I mean, it really just can't be beat. I think maybe Star Wars Land may compete with it once
may.
that comes around.
Galaxy's
But
Edge.
dude, whatever. It's going to be nicknamed Star Wars Land for 90% of all people. You know this to be true. And I will be one of them. Yeah, I mean, and of course, I haven't been to Pandora, but I feel like probably Pandora, there's, some competition there.
Oh,
but
yeah.
for something that opened in the early 90s, it was so ahead of its time when it came out. It predated the Harry Potter experiences at Universal by 2 decades and basically stood atop the tower of themed experiences, right? Like, it's so amazing. I love that attraction I love that it exists because I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite movie of all time.
Yep.
And the fact that Disney and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg all partnered to create this amazing experience, I'd never get tired of it. And the fact that you got to do a little tour of the queue, I'm so jealous right now. Like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm kind of there too because there's so many photo ops that you
Yes.
try to get that this would have been one of the only times I feel that I could have walked in with a tripod and it would have been perfectly acceptable. Other times,
yeah,
I can't
definitely.
even stand there for 3 seconds without somebody bumping into me or getting like the side eye because like, oh, this guy's not hurrying up. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I am absolutely jealous that you had this opportunity, but I'm glad
Very
that you
cool.
did because
Yeah.
you're one of the biggest indie fans on the podcast, and I'm
I
just
am.
super happy for you that you got a chance to do this.
And I did it for the team. So I was like, you know what? Let me do this. I got to do this.
Well, I mean, you did it for
And-
you, but
Yeah.
And it's also right next door to New Orleans Square, so it's kind of like an honorary member of the greatest land
Yeah.
of all. Like,
yeah,
that's kind of like our area. Our podcast area starts at Indy and ends at Mansion. Like, that's where our podcast lives.
yeah.
Pretty
I
much.
agree. Oh, I love it. I love it. I hope they do this again.
I do too.
I do. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
it's
And they extend it too. I hope so.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really does give you an opportunity to see all the magic that the Imagineers put in there. Regardless of whether or not they wanted you to use an AT&T calling card, there is a lot of magic that goes into creating these queues and the experience to immerse you, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes people take that for granted because, especially when you go to the parks, if you're there on a ticket that you purchased with your hard-earned money for just one day, you just want to get in and out of the attraction sometimes. You don't have the time to really appreciate the queues. And I wish there were more opportunities like this so that people that don't come as often as we are afforded the opportunity to can do stuff like this because, man, it's just so magical when you get to hear the stories behind the creation and see those little things. Like, now when you take me to see Tony Baxter's initials, it's the only thing I'm gonna see when I go by there now. You know what I mean?
Well,
Totally.
I'll show you Mickey's as well.
Oh, see,
What?
see.
Oh, I cannot wait.
I mean, when those 4-fingered gloves picked up that nail gun and started building that attraction, yeah, I'm happy you got a chance to do it. So, Disney, I know you're listening. If you get another opportunity to do this, please do it again because I want to
Yeah.
go. I want to take some pictures. All the pictures that I've been able to take on the attraction are always within seconds because somebody's hurrying me over. They're like, "Come on,
Yeah.
just keep moving. Go down in front." It's like, I can't sit down here, lady. It's a line. You know how it goes, though. You know how it goes. All right. Well, as you guys know, or maybe you don't know, maybe this is your first episode of Podketeers, and if that's the case, welcome to the Podketeers family. We hope you're enjoying the podcast so far, and we hope you come back for more. We had some comments from some listeners that I wanted to bring up. The first one that I wanted to bring up is just a quick shout out to at Disney_C_witch on Instagram, who just left a comment on the last episode, which was called Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. Her comment was just, love the podcast, with a little heart emoji. Thank you so much for that comment. It really means a lot to us that you enjoy the podcast. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to tell a friend. That's the best way to spread the word about Podketeers and helping us grow, just by telling somebody, or leave a comment on iTunes. You can leave a review. You can leave a review on Spotify or Google Podcasts, whatever your preferred method of listening to, because yes, we are on Spotify now. Yay. As of last week. Woohoo! We are on Spotify. So yeah, thank you very much for the comment. Also, I wanted to send a quick shout out to members of the Podketeers Nation, because we, and by we I mean me, I was in a huge hurry this weekend to post the final 2 matchups in the semifinals. And I wasn't paying attention when I rendered out these images after I rendered out the videos. And so just so you guys know the process, we've essentially rendered out the little videos that we post on our Instagram stories for every single scenario going down in that round. So if like Mickey's going up against, Belle, then we'll do one where Mickey's the winner, one where Belle's the winner, and, so on and so forth. So I accidentally posted the wrong image, because the image that it should have been in one semifinal matchup was Mickey versus Genie, and the other one was Stitch versus Woody, and I accidentally posted Mickey versus Belle, and we got called out quickly, and I was so happy, because I wouldn't have wanted that to be sitting there for so long. So quick shout outs to at Amazing Brian, Disneyland Nurse, the Dylan Henning, and of course Podketeers FGP Squad member Rav 1976, which is FGP member Albert. Thank you for all of the messages that you sent, because I was able to quickly take that down and embarrass myself just a tiny bit less overall this weekend for screwing that up. So if you saw that there was a Mickey versus Belle, that wasn't the right one. I'm sorry for posting that. I posted the right one. It's going to be Mickey versus Genie. As we are recording this episode, we have the final 3 matchups of March Mayhem to get through, the 2 semifinals and the final. So we don't know who won yet. So of course, next week we'll announce officially who our winner was. We're going to be talking about the prize pack later this week, so make sure that you're following us on our Instagram account. We're just at Podketeers. You'll see a picture of some of the stuff, or pictures of some of the stuff that we're going to be giving away as part of that prize pack. And if you have any questions, make sure to hit us up. If you see anything that's just weird like that, just send us a message, because I sincerely appreciate it. I'm not going to get offended if I screw something up, because, hey, I'm human. Right? It's just one of those things that just happened to get by. Our quality control did not catch that, because I was just in a hurry to get it done. So totally on me. Sorry about that. Also, since we're on the topic and I've mentioned them now, just want to remind all of you that this episode of Podketeers is brought to you by members of the FGP Squad. And if you're wondering now, what is the FGP Squad? You keep mentioning this FGP Squad. Well, we like to call them our podcast Fairy Godparents, but really they're listeners just like you. They help us out with a monthly or even one-time contribution via Patreon. So to all of our podcast Fairy Godparents, we just want to send a huge thank you to all of you, because it's your contributions via Patreon that help make these episodes of Podketeers possible. So if you want information on how you can join the FGP Squad, just head on over to podketeers.com/FGP. So this month we have been talking a lot about Main Street, u.s.a. at Disneyland Park. And, we talked about great moments with Mr. Lincoln. We talked about some of the shops. In this episode, we're going to do a little bit of our Armchair Imagineering, because we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we'd like to change on Main Street, what we'd like to add, what we'd like to see. And I agreed that I wasn't going to demolish all of Main Street, that I was going to change maybe one or two things.
You gave him too much rope last time.
So I agreed to abide by some of that and not completely demolish Main Street. Do you guys have more than one idea for this?
Yes.
Okay, I have three that I would like to talk about.
I've got three as well.
I got two.
So let's do this roundtable.
Okay.
Since Gavin and I each have three, Mel, we'll go first, and then we'll kind of round it out with our last two going around. Is that cool?
Sounds good.
Awesome. So, Gav, do you want to go first, or do you want me to jump in?
I'm gonna let you kick us off.
All right, cool. All right, so in the last episode, we talked a little bit about great moments with Mr. Lincoln, and I made a comment on the last episode, episode 248, that I really felt that the animatronic technology that they were working on was leading towards one day having an animatronic Walt. It prompted Gavin quickly to say, "Oh no, spoilers." And after my conversation with him last night, I figured it's because we had very similar ideas of wanting an animatronic of Walt Disney. So I feel that using that idea at this point is kind of cheating because we've already kind of put it out there. So instead, I'm going to build on that idea. Okay.
Ooh.
So the idea that I have is essentially an opportunity to team up. And I do this a lot because I love the technology, but I want Disney to team up with the Void once again. VR technology is getting to a point where it's becoming tactile. So that essentially means that if you're wearing gloves, you're feeling the things around you and not only seeing them as part of the goggles or the glasses that you're looking into this VR world. So it's becoming more of an interactive process versus just a walkthrough or a video game per se. So the idea that I had is there's all these tours that you're able to take at Disneyland, and one of them is a walk in Walt's footsteps. Well, what if you were able to take a walk in Walt's footsteps with Walt Disney?
Whoa.
Ooh.
What if you had the opportunity to grab the VR gloves, put them on, put on the headset, and literally hold Walt Disney's hand and walk down Main Street with him as he told you about the creation of Disneyland? And more importantly, because it's essentially VR tech and it's animations, it can start with an orange grove and it can slowly get demolished, and around you, you can see a time lapse of everything just going down and coming up and just pictures, and he can walk you through as one thing got built. So you're not only getting a history lesson on Disneyland, you're getting it from Walt.
Can I get tissues?
How
Because that
awesome
just
would
gave
this
me chills.
be?
It's a really good idea. And your comment is appropriate, Melissa. I don't think either of you have done the Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour, right?
No.
Not
I know
yet.
you have, but
Okay,
I've never had a
so
chance to.
Even without the VR Walt being present, I've never taken that tour. And I've done it, I think, 3 times. I've never done it where the majority of people aren't in tears at the finale. It is one of the most emotional, beautiful, inspiring things that you can experience at the park. I hugely recommend it. I can't even imagine if Walt is there delivering some of the quotes that you hear during the tour.
Right?
People would freak out. That is, man, that's a really cool idea. I love it.
And
You had me at holding his hand and walking down Main Street. I was like, I'm done. I'm literally putting my head down so I could wipe down my eye.
I mean, I feel like you would be a living partner statue getting the opportunity to walk down Main Street with Walt. But imagine just hearing Walt go up to the firehouse and say something like, "You see that light up there? That's how you know that I'm going to be here forever."
Stop.
And in your heart. Just little things like that. is
Oh,
what
that's
I would put into this
amazing.
attraction.
This is like a Pixar movie where it's making us cry in the first 5 minutes. Like Heyzen's just gonna make us
this
cry.
You told me to go first.
to start this. Yeah. But no, okay. So this is what we kind of do during these episodes: is we kind of blue sky it, we pitch back. So you
Yeah.
mentioned the partners. What if it was Walt and Mickey touring you through, and like bantering with each other and like hamming it up, like like they were actual like pals, Like
I like that
could be
idea.
That
so
would be
amazing,
cute.
and they can be like reminding each other of, oh, remember when you did this, and remember when you did that, and I think that could like ramp it up even to another level.
I do like that idea, especially considering that he was the voice of Mickey for a long time. Just having him do it, and then you can turn around and be like, I heard you. He's like, what are you talking about? That was Mickey.
Yeah, and then like the tour could end at the partner's statue, and they could be like it could end with them like in that pose of Walt going, oh, hey, look down Main Street, and like pointing,
Lord.
and it just like freezes in that pose, and then everybody's just like bawling, and oh my gosh, that could be amazing.
So that's my first idea of what we can incorporate to Main Street. And here's the
You
challenge,
win.
okay?
So good.
Main Street USA to me is one of those lands that, although it seems old, it just fits so well into the park. It's an amazing introduction to the rest of the areas because you get so much of Walt's story as you do when you walk down Buena Vista Street right by the Carthay Circle area. But going down Main Street is very nostalgic, and I feel like if you change too much, it will lose some of that magic.
Yeah.
So anything that we do, or anything that we would want to change on Main Street, we would have to do it with such care and love that we would want to keep that magic. So appending certain things that already exist, like this tour, I feel would be really the best way to honor what Imagineering has put together, what Walt wanted Main Street to be, but at the same time bringing some tech into the park that would just really plus up those tours.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Since you guys haven't been on it, you may or may not know that is, I'm not going to call it cheating, but it's not purely a Main Street attraction. It starts on Main Street and ends on Main Street, but it is a tour throughout the entire park.
Right.
So, I'm going to give you this one, but... Yeah, that's the cool thing about it, is that you really get to tour a bunch of different areas around the park. And every time I've taken it, they've done different iterations of the tour. So you get to see different spots around the park that Walt was directly involved in. And just anyone who hasn't taken the tour, it's not cheap, but if you get the opportunity... Like, I really do recommend it. It's a wonderful tour. It's really, really good.
Yeah, it's definitely on our bucket list of stuff to do at the park.
Sweet.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, Gav, your turn.
Okay, so we're just going to get all the Walt ideas out of the way first. So since Heyzen kind of destroyed my ultimate surprise last week.
I'm so sorry.
In a way, I
Hey,
stopped...
great minds think alike, right?
That's
Yeah?
true. That's true. That's fair. But in a way, I kind of stopped developing my initial idea. So it's a little bit abbreviated, this first one. But I do think that the ultimate experience for Main Street would be a Walt Disney animatronic. And I kind of feel like there's not a lot of great spaces for an additional theater. So I kind of envisioned a plussing of the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln attraction where Walt Disney would become the host of that attraction. Ooh. And he would give us a little history of the early WED Enterprises endeavors to create audio animatronics. He would refer to his tiki birds. He would refer to the World's Fair, give us some of the history we've been delving into on this podcast, and just kind of talk about the excitement. And he would, kind of exude the storytelling nature that he did on his Disneyland television show. And then, of course, he would jump back into his childhood and talk to us about how the historical figure of Abraham Lincoln really impacted him and inspired him and, helped him seek to do great things in his life. And I just think that would be an amazing introduction to what is already an amazing attraction. And I think that would make it a super popular attraction in the way that it's kind of sadly not right now. It's never a crowded attraction. And, I would hate if there came a day that they decided, well, not enough people are watching this. So if they could find a way to imbue new energy in it, that would be amazing. And I think if they put Walt himself in there, in his own town square on Main Street, like that, it's the perfect place for a Walt animatronic to be. And, they could use the hundreds of hours of audio that we have of Walt, and actually use his voice. So they wouldn't have to get an actor. And we've got millions of pictures and film of him. I'd be shocked if there wasn't a live cast of his face, owned by Disney somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I just feel like it's tailor made for him to just. Can you imagine sitting down in that theater and it's about to start and like Walt steps out like in front of the curtain and just gives a little talk and says, "You're about to see this amazing show," like just in his Waltness. And just, I mean, I would never stop watching it. I would just get right back in line again, over and over and over again.
You would have the
think that would
complete
be
opposite of
amazing.
what's happening now.
Yes, exactly. I think it would be a sought-after attraction. They would have to design a queue for the Opera House. They'd have to like completely rethink crowd control at that area. And that would be a good thing to me because it would bring people back to kind of the core of the history of Disneyland. And, to kind of piggyback on your idea too, he could reference his apartment across the square and, look up there and see my lamp, kids. And that just means I'm always hanging out with you, like stuff like that. Like, I mean, I just think it could be a tear-jerking, amazing moment. And, and then they could do the Lincoln show and then it could end and he could even step out one more time at the end and say, "Thanks for watching my show. I'm glad you like it." In this kind of aw shucks Midwestern way. And man, that would be a dream come true for me. I think the audio animatronic Walt is the ultimate in Disney potential. Like we've got Galaxy's Edge right around the corner, which is like the ultimate in Disney theming and attraction technology. But really, the ultimate Disney magic, bring Walt Disney to life. My only concern is, are there questions about, like, is the family okay with that? Like, we want to be respectful of everybody, And, for example, there were questions about, should we have a CG version of Carrie Fisher in Star Wars films, where they didn't get enough footage or whatever, And it's like, respecting the family and the legacy and all that. So I think we'd have to consider those things from all perspectives. But just as a fan, I think it would be amazing. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic.
Just the amount of love that would be received by this. I mean, to have him come out and bring out the show and talk a little bit about that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Because we did kind of see a little bit of that when we had the first 50 years. And we got to see the footage of him in the area of how he determined the orange trees and everything. And it would be a full circle if, things were to go well with the family and whatnot. But like you said, as a fan, I mean, I'm going to bring like a whole box of tissues because it would be so realistic that you would think he's there. And I already spoke about how Abraham Lincoln looks perfect the way he is. And I should have mentioned that I sit in the back. That's how it is. But yeah, I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So normally, we like to jump in and add our 2 cents about what we've just presented to the group. But again, great minds think alike, and I had a very similar concept for the Opera House. So instead of jumping onto yours, Gavin, I'll wait as we go around again to tell you what my idea was, because mine actually, after we talked about the animatronic, I actually excluded it from my idea.
Oh, okay.
So mine is a little bit different, but it's very similar to your concept, sans the audio animatronic of Walt. But let's have Mel tell us one of hers, and then we'll kind of wrap around again.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
I love it, though. Awesome idea.
Right? Mine won't create tears. Yay. So I'll be able to talk. So I love how Main Street is. And I didn't actually think of an attraction. I actually wanted to add on to Main Street. And it's actually Buena Vista Street that inspired me, because I love the citizens of Buena Vista Street.
Oh, nice. I was thinking of that.
If we had just a few folks, tell us a little bit of history. I mean, you can't go wrong with any newfound history or in character. And I would love to see something like that. And I was thinking about, how on East Center Street, where we have the dentist, the piano lessons window, all those different windows. And if we could have the citizens speak about that and let them tell us about opening day. I mean, if they were able to tell us those little stories and whatnot, I think it would bring some sort of new life to the land itself, or the street itself, I should say. If you ever have a chance to talk to Fifi, the photographer,
she's awesome.
She is spot on, even with stuff from Disneyland. So imagine we had that at Disneyland. Like, I would love it. I mean, just that interaction.
Yeah.
That's I love that. So that's something I would love to see on Main Street.
I totally agree. As I understand it, they still have a little more of an element of that at Walt Disney World. Even in multiple different lands, they've got more people that are quote unquote in character, right?
Yeah.
Like here, they've got cast members who are in costume for the different land that they're in, but they're not necessarily playing a character or a role. And I agree. Like the citizens of Buena Vista Street add an element that make Main Street feel a little less, as much as it can, because Main Street's amazing. But if they had that element added to it, I 100% agree. And I actually thought of that idea. I think it would be amazing to have some like Pollyanna era characters, even like, they could really do something special with that. I totally agree.
They could start mixing in some of the other characters that we've heard about, like the SEA characters, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, imagine having Harrison Hightower walk around and say, well, my mansion was built overseas. And then he's like, but here in New Orleans Square, you have your own ghost house. It's like, stuff like that would just be super cool. It's like, and if you go to our tropical hideaway, you lucky people, you'll find... That's super cool. I love that idea, and I love the ability of giving people the opportunity to not just learn about Main Street and Disneyland and the history, but also doing it in a very entertaining way where if there's a bottleneck for attractions or something, or people are just waiting for a parade. I mean, there's people that camp out for parades for hours. This would be a really fun way of having them pass the time without people getting frustrated that they're sitting there or standing there waiting for one of these shows to come up. So this needs to happen on Main Street.
Yep. And
So
it would be
cool.
easy to implement too.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't get a chance to talk about this in our episodes before, but you want to hear something that I've learned that just kind of blew my mind, and for people that know about Main Street, I think a lot of people don't know this particular fact about it, but if I were to ask you, what is Main Street USA based on? What is your answer?
Walt's hometown?
Well, the original idea, as I understand it, from Walt's mind was his memory
Yeah.
of Marceline,
Mm-hmm.
but also combined with Kansas City. And then the designers of it, I forget who was the main person who did most of the elevations, actually used a town, I want to say it's in Colorado.
So you
For
are
the
the exception,
inspiration.
sir, because
Okay.
you know way more about that story
Yeah,
than most
yeah.
people do. The standard answer is Marceline.
What I
Right.
said.
Yeah. And for a long time, that's kind of what I knew too. So the person that you're thinking about is Harper Goff.
Harper, yes,
And
that's
Harper
right.
Goff essentially worked as a Hollywood set designer. And when Walt talked to Harper Goff about, all these buildings in Marceline, he didn't go to Marceline. He actually based a lot of Main Street USA and the designs of the buildings on his own hometown of Fort Collins.
Fort Collins,
So
that's right.
that's where the designs of a lot of the buildings come from. So if that was not something that you knew, the next time you go to the park, it's a little bit of knowledge that you'll have that you can pass on to other people. I just thought it was a really cool tidbit that I wanted to make sure that we got into this series of Main Street. So,
Nice. I like it.
okay, so my second idea, again, very similar to what you said, Gavin. It was to somehow recreate or plus up Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln and the Opera House. The physical structure of the Opera House, I think, at least the facade, is something that I would want to keep because it's very iconic in the way that it looks. But the theater itself and the stage and all those seats is one of the things that I would want to just get rid of in there. Disney is doing a lot of really cool things with 4D technology right now. And one of the attractions that we're going to see that technology in action with is the new Mickey's Runaway Railway is the attraction.
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
And so 4D technology works on projections and moving elements inside of the room. We're already getting the Disneyland story featuring Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. But what if we adapted it to this 4D technology where you're kind of like shifting back and forth and things are moving in front of you and you're almost on a ride, through this history, and you're kind of going through all these elements and they're coming towards you and you're moving through the park and you're seeing these visuals of when the park was first being created, narrated by Walt Disney. And that's where I felt it was really different because I didn't want to put the animatronic in there. But I feel that, like you said, there's so many recordings of Walt chronicling what happened during the creation of Disneyland that we could use all of his audio and adapt it to this attraction and create this 4D experience inside of the Opera House.
Yes.
Ooh.
I like it. So in your idea, would we still have more or less the Lincoln attraction intact within that?
It would still feature Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, except that being an actual, if you can imagine, Lincoln would be kind of the final attraction piece that you would see before you exit. It still goes through the Disneyland story, just appended to include these 4D elements and maybe a little bit more story throughout what the movie that you're being shown and the projections. But the final thing that's revealed to you is you're hearing this interaction or these thoughts on how Lincoln was the greatest president and how, he really inspired Walt and how his form of thinking is really what helped him to create Disneyland because he took those values, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And then you see these two walls separate and then you see Lincoln delivering the Gettysburg Address. That's what you hear. That's the final piece of it. And then you're thanked by Walt one more time. And then you're talking about the magic and then you exit the attraction.
So wait, you said you would take out the seats?
Yeah, because you would need ride vehicles.
Oh, you would need ride vehicles?
Yeah, because there would be moving elements.
Okay.
So that you're essentially on like a trackless system where it's guiding you through all these projections and moving walls that are projecting these scenarios of how the park was built.
Got it. Oh man,
Nice.
So that's going to need a lot of room. I think you're going to need to expand behind Main Street into that area between Main Street and Space Mountain.
And we can do that.
in
There's
order to
space.
accommodate that.
There's space. We could do that.
I mean, we could do that until I present my last idea, but whatever. No, I think that's great. I love I can't wait for the Mickey's Runaway Railway attraction because I still can't fully wrap my head around how that is going to look and feel. And I can't wait to experience it because I think that's going to change the game in a completely new and unexpected way than we've ever, had before. I feel like with Galaxy's Edge, they're going to reach a new level of things like what we've already experienced, and it's going to be amazing and jaw-dropping. But I think with the Mickey's Runaway Railway idea, it's going to be completely new and different, and that excites me. So I love this idea because it kind of piggybacks on this new idea of presenting visuals in a park attraction. And this is a really interesting application for it. I never would have thought of kind of trying to do that same thing in this scenario, but I can definitely see its potential.
Cool. All right. Let's hear your next one, sir.
All right. My second idea is another plussing of an existing attraction. As we all know, Main Street is kind of low on the attraction scale, right? Like the attractions are basically the Main Street vehicles, which I consider one attraction. And then basically Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln and the cinema. So I'm going to move down the street to the cinema and pitch an idea to plus that.
Ooh.
So I do enjoy the cinema, and I stop in there with a fair amount of frequency to check out the old black and white Mickey cartoons and enjoy those for a little while on my visits. And I think it's neat, but I've never been in there with more than maybe 2 other people. It's another thing that I think is really neat, but doesn't draw a lot of attention. And I think a lot of people don't know that they can actually walk in there. Like I almost wish there was a cast member out in front of it saying, come on in, come see the picture show, like something,
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize that they can go through that curtain because it kind of looks like it's closed, right?
Yeah.
So I want to inject some energy into the attraction itself, and part of that would be put somebody out front. But the main idea that I have is to really revamp the interior of the theater. So first of all, I would include seats so I'll take the seats you're taking out of the opera house, I guess.
Oh, good. They now have a new home. Great.
Right? Yeah. So I would incorporate seats because I feel like what I'm going to create would make people want to sit and watch all of the films, right? So I want to keep all of I think there's 6 films that show in there currently in this kind of in the round scenario. So if you haven't been in there, it's basically a circular room and you can kind of walk around it and you can see 6 different Mickey shorts. Maybe it's only 5. I can't remember. But they're all silent except for the center one, which is showing Steamboat Willie, and you hear the audio for that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Disney did in the recent past is they kind of combined the idea of one of these original Mickey cartoons that created the foundation of the company, and they plussed it by creating a 3D element when they created Get a Horse, right?
It's so good.
So my idea is to give all 5 of these films the Get a Horse treatment.
Nice.
So you walk into the theater and you're provided some 3D glasses. You find a seat, and whatever show is in the center screen gets the Get a Horse treatment. And the others are just in their standard format. And when that film ends, the films leap to each other's screens. Like every film leaps to the right. And so the next film moves over. So like you were watching Steamboat Willie, now you're watching Plane Crazy, and it's a Get a Horse version. So everything becomes 3D. It starts popping out of the screen. Things are, they could even make it 4D, where if there's water, you get a little spritz, stuff like that. But really just making it a really energized, involved show. and you could sit there and watch every film as it rotates around the room, or you can just stop in and watch one. Like, it's a kind of an open house scenario like it is, but I think it would entice more people to really sit there and enjoy, what's being offered. And it kind of gives a new take on those old films, because those of us that are diehards have seen those, 1,000 times, and we know and love them. But how cool would it be to see Steamboat Willie, but all of a sudden parts of it are 3D, just like Get a Horse? Like, I think that would be amazing. And I can just kind of picture like the projections being animated in the way that they dance from one screen to another. And all of a sudden, like, some sort of magic happens, and boom, this new film has extra elements that you weren't expecting. And that's basically my idea.
Oh,
I love
man.
it.
What a great way to plus up that area. It's so crazy because as you were talking and, you said, oh, we should put seats in there. You did it very practical. You're like, oh, and then the movies jump from one screen to another, and now you're looking at something else. In my head, I had something totally different going. I was like, okay, and then in the center, we're going to create a conical structure with stadium seating that rotates very slowly at the speed of every cartoon, so that by the time it's into the next screen, it's when that one is starting. And so I had it like perfectly timed all the way around.
Right.
And then they jump. I was like, oh, yeah, that's way more practical. Okay.
Well, also thinking of like creative animation techniques, like, animate it from one screen to the next,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just feel like it would be neat to see more cartoons given that treatment like they did with Get a Horse, which I thought was absolutely pure genius. I love every moment of that short. I think it's quite possibly the best Disney short film. And I just think it'd be cool to do something like that. But again, I do feel like there needs to be somebody out front letting people know, hey, come in and see the show. Because I see people walk by that thing all the time and kind of look at it and kind of sort of peer in. And then just like, I hear them say things like, oh, I don't know what this is. We'll just move on. I don't think it's well known that you can just walk right in and see those films.
I love it so much.
I do too.
What if we take a little bit of Disney history? Remember when I was talking about, or when Mel was talking about the shops on Main Street, and I told you how they used to have the old school black and white films, and they had like somebody dressed as Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde rather jump out and scare people? What if they had cast members dressed as the characters from those cartoons, and when they would like peek through the actual curtain and be like, oh wait, I went too far, and they'd jump back into the cartoon.
That could be cool.
Whoa.
That could be, or they could just have a cast member in there that kind of is like an usher, and they could interact with things. Like if I don't know, let's just use a random example. Like if a baseball came flying out of the audience, the cast member could like catch a baseball and like throw it back or something, like stuff like that too. Like it could really just extend the experience.
Well, I guess they wouldn't have to be cast members. They could be animatronics at that point, because they're just Mickey primarily and Minnie. So black and white animatronics would be good. You know what else would be really great to see in there, just to give him a little bit of credit, is some Oswald stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
I think Oswald needs his time at the cinema as well, because I don't think he's well represented. And now that you don't have the meet and greet at California Adventure, I feel that he's even less represented. So if we had the opportunity to see some of the cartoons that exist, that would be really great, especially now that Disney finally owns all the Oswald cartoons that are in existence.
Well, maybe when we Armchair Imagineer Buena Vista Street, you can come up with an Oswald attraction that competes with the Mickey Cinema.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm in.
I like it.
All right, Mel.
All right. So my next idea is actually kind of basic, you would say. I would take over one of the shops, but I would like to cater it because I've noticed the size, the group of those in Dapper Day. And there's a huge market out there for the ladies. I know right now we have the dress shop that's in New Orleans Square.
Yeah.
Oh, I see where you're
And
going.
I don't think it should be there. I think it should be on Main Street because we have all the clothing and whatnot. But I want to bring it up to where we have, like, not just say retro, but I would love to see like the Victorian style of how they had makeup back then. Kind of like a boutique to cater to that.
I
if
like it.
That makes sense.
No, yeah, that's awesome.
So kind of like a permanent Dapper Day Expo.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. But I was thinking about, you know how when we were talking about the Wizard of Oz, how they would showcase little things. So I was like, kind of bring it.
I know I was a little late
that.
on that one. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So I'm thinking kind of bring that little aspect back to it. Something that's like, that would give us the old times,
Yeah.
but still modern at the same time.
I like it.
So,
That's cool.
I mean, like I said, it's basic, but I'm like, it'd be pretty cool because, I mean, that event is just insane now.
Well, vintage is definitely back in right now. So at least for the time being, I feel like that could definitely be a successful attraction because, people would be interested.
Yeah.
And, the success of the Dapper Day Expo just speaks to that fact. And having it on Main Street, I mean, of course, that's the perfect setting for it, So, that's a great idea. And I love the idea of having, period cosmetics even. So, side note.
Yeah.
Melissa, you saw that ColourPop released their Villains line this week, right?
I already made my order.
I knew you did. Perfect.
That doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me.
That's hilarious. I wanted to mention it since we had talked about them on the show earlier in a
Way
previous
ahead of you.
episode. So that's awesome. But yeah, I think this idea has definite merit, and I could see it working out especially because of the local crowd that does Dapper Day all the time, and a lot of people aren't good at, shopping vintage stores and retro places and like really kind of piecing together outfits. And if they had really cool rotating stock of like, here's some great Dapper ideas, I feel like a lot of people would cash in on that. I'm the same. I've tried to come up with a couple Disney bounds and a couple Dapper Day outfits, and I don't have any skill on that level at all. Like no real high-end fashion sense at all. I can wear a suit, but I can't theme it, And so if they had, dresses and outfits and suits and whatever for, everybody, I think that'd be great, because let's be honest, I think we've all at certain times had a little bibbity bobbity boutique envy, right? Like I want to get all Disneyed up, but there's no place for me.
I'm right there with you. I have no sense of style when it comes to that. I usually default to Kylo Ren because it's black shirt, black pants, red tie, boom, instant Dapper, instant Kylo. And then it's all Sith from, well, I guess he's not a Sith technically. He's a Knight of Ren. So
he wants to be Sith.
At least I caught myself. Anyhow, the idea of having this type of shop, I think, is fantastic. And the thing people, I think, don't realize about vintage culture, so to speak, is that it doesn't start and stop with Dapper Day for most people. This culture exceeds and extends far past Disneyland, and there are other conventions, there are get-togethers, there are all sorts of other events that revolve around that style of clothing and the lifestyle. I mean, Charles Phoenix has built an entire career on talking about vintage everything, right? So this culture exists outside of Dapper Day. So if Disney was able to put like something like this together, I think to add to your idea, I think one of the coolest things that they could do is there's so many talented seamstresses and clothing designers on Instagram. They could call it Creators Corner instead of like a specifically Dapper Day thing. And
Ooh.
they revolve some of these creators, these clothing creators, in and out of the shop, similar to what they do with Wonderground and the artists that are featured there. But
I
instead of
like that.
paintings, it's clothing that's being featured inside of this store. So that way,
Nice.
Disney always has this cool, fresh new stock. And at the same time, it's helping out the community that's helping spread their brand, right? Without them
Mhm.
having to come up with all of this. The biggest challenge, of course, would be that Disney produces things by the millions because they know that's exactly how how much people are going to purchase. The creators that end up being featured in a store like this would really have to be prepared to be able to churn out a specific amount of clothing or somehow make deals with Disney where they provide a pattern and then Disney creates this design that was made by this creator, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Like
No,
I feel it'd be a really great way to feature more than just artists in the Disney
yeah.
community.
That could be cool for sure.
That's cool. I love that idea. Oh man. All right. Well, my final idea. I mean, I debated whether or not I want to change one of the areas back to a restaurant or change behind City Hall. And both of them not as exciting as anything else that we've talked about, especially not after Gavin's done with that backstage area with his next idea. But I'm going to go with this one because I feel that, and I'm going to keep with the whole Disney story thing. Last year, my family and I had the opportunity to go up to the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. And visiting the museum was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had because it just, from childhood to when he passed away, Walt Disney everything. And it was really this immersive experience of his entire life when he was a child, teenager, everything, right? All of his failures, all of his successes. There's this huge model of Disneyland that just looks amazing. But I want to bring a little bit of that magic to Disneyland because I think as part of the tours, I feel like we're missing. In a way, Disneyland is kind of a museum of Walt Disney, right? All of
Mm-hmm.
his
Yeah.
ideas and everything that he wanted to do. But we kind of need a Walt Disney museum in Anaheim because not everybody can go to San Francisco, especially if somebody's going to decide, well, should we go on our family vacation to Disneyland or should we go to the Walt Disney Family Museum? Most people will choose Disneyland because it's larger, especially if they have kids, they're going to want to enjoy the park. So
Mm-hmm.
what if we took down a portion of where they currently do the user surveys next to City Hall, next to like the guided tours kiosk, and we
Mm-hmm.
use that building and behind City Hall to create almost like a small Walt Disney Family Museum area sponsored by the Walt Disney Family Museum where you get a little taste of what the museum's like. They guide you through Walt's life and then at the end you can maybe sign up to get a better tour at the museum or get a discount if you sign up for their email
Hmm.
list or something like that. But also having that opportunity to incorporate it into the guided tours. So they walk you through these rooms, they walk you through the pictures. Each picture has a story. Maybe you could see a video or two, and they can incorporate Walt's apartment into that guided tour. So
Yeah.
it's almost taking like the walk in Walt's footsteps in a separate direction and not full technology based attraction, but more of a small museum to Walt and his vision of what the park was to become.
I like it.
I
I
love
think that's
it.
awesome. So I wonder, because the lobby or the front section of the Opera House is kind of what that is.
Yeah.
It has the model, the basic model, but it's a model of Disneyland as it existed in opening day. I wonder if they could do it there, but I feel like maybe yours is going to be like you want to expand that area behind the city hall, right? And make
Yeah.
it bigger than that area.
Yeah.
So if they did that, then they would probably rework the Opera House area to be something different. But that would be really cool. I wonder if the Walt Disney Family Museum would be willing to or able to part with enough items or artifacts or things to populate it with. You know what I mean? For it to be good.
It doesn't have to be the actual items. The actual items
Yeah.
can remain at the Walt Disney Family Museum. But I think there's ways of bringing some of that to Disneyland just by getting recreations of those.
Yeah, it would be really cool to have that and to have that cross promotion going.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, business wise, I don't know how much they support each other really, because they're not associated technically.
They're
right?
not, no.
You know, they're separate businesses, but it would be cool to have a little museum sponsored by the Walt Disney Family Museum. And I mean, God, that would be a great preview of then when you finally get the chance to go up there and see it for those of us that haven't yet.
Yeah. And the museum has so much more to offer outside of just Walt Disney's history, because every quarter or so they have different presentations. When we went, we had the opportunity to see a massive building full of art, concepts, items that belong to the 9 Old Men. So that was the exhibit that was going on when we had a chance to go to the museum. And it rotates all the time. They've had stuff on Ivan Earl before. They had stuff on different artists and different Imagineers. So there's always something new to see, and it's not just Walt's history. Plus, the Presidio is beautiful. So if you grab some lunch and you just sit there and eat, like you're right off of the bay, so close to the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's just an awesome experience. So I think creating this museum doesn't necessarily ruin going to the Disney Family Museum. It just enhances or makes people really want to go a little bit more because they're getting a taste of what they would see.
Yeah, it whets their appetite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I like it.
I would like to add a little bit to that.
Okay.
I love the idea. What if they brought things of Disney past or Disneyland past?
Yeah.
I know the space behind where the guided tours is. We talked about this, and you know where they have the meet and greets for the characters?
Yeah.
Let's put everything there. There's more space. And they could kind of talk about, Edison Street, what was supposed to be there. I would love to see this. I'm just a sucker to see all kinds of stuff in history. So I love it. I do. And I think it would be so cool, such a great addition, because, who wouldn't want to see stuff that was here before? Maybe they would have a float from Main Street Electrical Parade.
Yeah.
Something from the first time around or whatnot. So.
Yeah. That would be really cool. You're right, Gavin. Since they're different businesses, who knows if they would even want to do something like this. I think we think it's cool because, we're really engulfed in this culture and we talk about it weekly. But one thing that I feel is missing, if this wasn't to work out but they still expanded that area, what if they made like a little version of the Blue Sky Cellar at Disneyland with all the changes that happen at Disneyland?
Yeah.
And then you have the Blue Sky Cellar at DCA that talks about the changes at DCA.
Yeah. They've had that in the past,
Yeah.
And they've had it on Main Street. They had it when it was above the queue for Pirates of the Caribbean.
At the gallery, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I would love to see that come back to the park because as an artist, that was always one of my very favorite things to view. The Disneyana gallery in the Opera House building now sometimes has some of that. And but really, we don't have a preview of coming attractions at Disneyland anymore. And I agree. I think that would be amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Lay it on us. What's this
All right,
idea that's
so-
going to break down all of Main Street?
So the one thing that Main Street lacks is thrill rides. So we're going to talk about a roller coaster. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no.
See,
eyes
don't
just
do this to
grew.
me. Don't
Come on.
play with my fragile heart.
No roller coasters. But I am going to create a large new area. Usually when I think of my main ideas, I think of almost a complex that includes an e-ticket attraction. So I kind of did that with my Tron user gateway. I kind of did that with my Brave area. I'm going to do that again with Main Street, and I want to create a new expansion to Main Street that exists in that area that I mentioned before, starting from East Center Street and extending behind Main Street, moving south between the Opera House and Space Mountain. So if you are around a computer and you can look up Google satellite maps, you can see that there is quite a bit of area between Main Street and Space Mountain that still exists. Now, I'm sure Disneyland's using it for various purposes, like parade float staging and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'm taking it over. So the one thing that is so incredibly iconic in the Disney canon that is still more or less completely unrepresented in the realm of attractions and experiences is none other than Mary Poppins. So,
okay,
because the original concepts for the extended streets of Main Street were going to be Edison Square, which eventually became Liberty Square in the Magic Kingdom, and International Street, which eventually became what we know of as the World Showcase in Epcot, I think it's time that Cherry Tree Lane became a reality.
Oh, dude.
My God.
My idea is to go down East Center Street a little bit further than what you currently can, and then round the corner and turn right and go south. And in that transition, you step from, a romanticized version of America at the turn of the 20th century to the idealized London of Mary Poppins at the turn of the same century.
Oh,
and
my God.
There you will see
Yay.
the famous sights of Cherry Tree Lane. You'll see the Admiral's house, and he'll shoot off his cannon every now and again.
Yes, I'm all excited.
From the right side of Main Street, you'll hear his cannon. From the left side of Main Street, you'll hear the Jungle Cruise guns going off, so you'll have symmetry there. You'll see the Banks house. Across from them, you'll see the little park. And there can be people on the streets, like characters on the streets. There can be little street vendors. I think it'd be cool to have Bert in his one-man band get up, do a little show, right? All of these things, like you could do a million things with just that environment and immersing people in it, right? Mm-hmm. I envision like above the rooftops in the background, there's just like always a kite flying. Like you can just see a kite up there. I think that would be amazing. But the attraction, the main e-ticket moment of this, will kind of go back and hinge on Heyzen's original idea. We're going to have some VR experiences here.
Yes.
So
I'm so excited because I want to hear.
Yeah, the idea of my VR Mary Poppins experience is the Jolly Holiday sequence.
Oh, my God.
That's exactly what I was hoping you were going to go for. I'm so happy.
Will, of course, tie into the Jolly Holiday down the road.
Nice.
And basically, you're going to don your VR whatever, and you and your friends will walk across the street to the park, and you'll meet Bert, who's painting his little chalk drawings on the sidewalk, and you will jump on one of those chalk drawings, and poof, the world will become animated.
That's so cool.
And you will see some carousel horses in front of you. You will climb on a carousel horse, and you will go on a little tour. You'll tour through the barnyard, and you'll see all the animals. You'll go past the cafe where you'll see Bert and Mary getting served by the penguins. And then, of course, it'll end in a thrilling race at the horse track where you'll be doing really great, but ultimately you will always just lose to Mary Poppins, who's practically perfect in every way, including in the ways of horse racing. And that will be your experience. To me,
All right, you win. You
like,
win.
I think
You win
this
all the
is-
space.
This is made for this, right? Like the idea of that scene is so perfect for VR and where it's going to me. Like because they almost do that in the film. They like jump into their imagination. So that's what you get to do. And I've wanted, we all have wanted a Mary Poppins experience in the parks forever, right? Like that to me is the most glaring omission from the catalog. You know, it's like there are some Renaissance films that we all feel need an attraction. We're looking at you, Lion King, but you know, Mary Poppins has been missing. You know, we get to see her and Bert in the park, and there's the Jolly Holiday. There's a couple little things here and there, but not a real experience. And I think it's time. So that's my pitch.
Oh, you win, dude. You win all the space.
There's nothing to add on.
I mean, when you started poking back there, I was like, oh, is he going to talk about finally adding Liberty Square and Edison Square? Yeah, that's cool.
Nope.
And then you blew my mind.
Well, honestly, it's kind of thanks to you, because when you totally blew my surprise that I was going to bring an animatronic Walt, it really jogged my creative juices. Like, okay, I got to think of something additional. I gotta take another turn and go down a different avenue, literally. And that's when I was struck by this idea. So thank you for pushing me further. But yeah, I would love this to come to fruition. It's kind of one of those ideas that I thought of, and then I almost instantly became disappointed because it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that it doesn't exist
right.
now. I'm a little disappointed about that.
Yeah, I would love to see something like that happen. And if it's not on Main Street, like anywhere, they could put that anywhere, and I would love it.
Yeah, Shanghai would get it.
Right? Oh, they probably would.
Oh, man. All right, Mel, bring it home.
No, I don't. I only had 2.
Oh, you only had 2. All right.
Yeah,
Well, I guess that was it then.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that
that
was the
was
perfect
perfect
way to end it then.
Yeah, that's the mic drop moment.
Oh, man. Ah, so good.
Now I want to hear the cannons happen.
I know,
I know.
right?
And
I know.
tell me the time. I want to brace for them.
Yeah.
I just want to see all the chimney sweeps do step in time together.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could be like even up on the roofs and like singing down to you from above, you know? Like they could do so many things with it.
Just like we have the Dapper Dans, we could have them on the rooftops doing their little show.
Tripping the Light Fantastic.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like they could build up, because those buildings on Cherry Street and in those London sets are tall. So you could build it up in a way that it's not tall enough that you could see it from Main Street proper, but when you're in Cherry Street, it's tall enough that you won't see Space Mountain, right?
Yeah.
I feel like they could create the sight lines appropriately that it would all be really seamless visually.
Yeah. Well, they can enclose it in such a way where when you're in that area, you see the front facade of those houses. But from behind, it's just a second floor to the Main Street buildings.
Sure.
You know? So you force the perspective and make it look like it's a couple more floors or something. That would be easy to mask, I guess.
Yeah.
I know I say this every time we do one of these episodes, but oh man, I love these types of episodes.
They're super fun.
Well, I guess, man, we've been going really long. So if you have any ideas about what you would want to see on Main Street, we're going to put the question out to all of you. If you have any ideas that you want to share, join the conversation over on Facebook, Instagram, or on Twitter. Just search for Podketeers. Follow us on all of those social networks. And if you say hi, we'll say hi back. That's common courtesy, I think. I think that's the best thing we can do. But yeah, share your ideas with us. We'll talk about them in an upcoming episode. We'd love to hear if you've already thought about this, or if maybe any of our ideas spawn something in your brain. And if you just happen to like one of the ideas that you heard today, then, let us know which one you like the best. Because, I mean, once we get enough votes, we can just text message Bobby and be like, dude, you got to make this happen. The people have spoken. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Super fun. Thank you both for sharing your ideas. I think this has been one of the cooler Armchair Imagineering episodes that we've done thus far.
Yeah, it's fun
Yeah.
because I don't feel like people brainstorm a lot about things they would add to Main Street, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of those lands that doesn't get a lot of creative attention from fans. And so it was a unique exercise. Even for me, I don't think of a lot of updates to Main Street, you know? I think of it as a pretty much perfect place. And, you know, I don't think of ideas that might need to come to it. So this was a lot of fun.
Right
Definitely an emotional episode.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that is going to wrap it up for this episode. So, until next time, keep dreaming, keep moving forward, and always remember to pass on the magic. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Made you look.